The discussions in the previous video points to three important keywords to summarize the unique issues in a services supply chain. Number 1, no inventory in the system quite often. Number 2, simultaneity of production and consumption of services. And number 3, people oriented and people intensive nature. So, let us understand the implication of each one of these, because these are the differences that we need to look for in a services supply chain. Let us take the issue of no inventory in the chain. Since we are talking of no inventory, we need to design and operate a system in which there is going to be no inventory. 100% fulfillment and on time becomes a necessity. So, we need to really gear up a supply chain for that. And this suggests that the capacity and demand management modules of supply chain management are critical elements. We should be able to manage demand supply mismatch issues, which are very critical to supply chain management performance, because we are not talking of inventory in the system. So, we need strategies for matching the supply with the demand, and they are typically done very differently in a services supply chain. Again, if you may recall, we discussed some of these issues in our last module on capacity. You may want to revisit the video to connect the ideas with this issue. For instance, if you remember, we talked about peak versus non-peak, how do we handle them and so on. We found that pricing could be one of the main levers in this process. So, the other implication for supply chain management in a system with no inventory is that the flow and the delivery reliability issues are paramount. Is because there are no backups to absorb the variability in flow and delivery in the form of inventory. So, all these have to work with absolute precision. Therefore, we need to develop good control systems for ensuring flow and delivery reliability in the system. So, these are some of the issues that we need to worry about in a services supply chain because there are no inventory. Let us turn our attention on the other unique feature, which is simultaneity of production and consumption. So, simultaneity clearly requires that customers participate in the service creation and consumption process along with the service provider, as we see it in the case of services such as healthcare and hospitality. Just imagine having a hospital, let us say about 50 kilometers away from the main city. It is not a good decision at all. Customers may find it very difficult to utilize the services if you locate the hospital at a very far off place. So, this would require that the supply chain management in a services supply chain of this variety, the network design greatly emphasizes reach as an important parameter. By reach, we mean the accessibility of the service delivery system for the customers. A well designed supply chain network will reduce the time required to access the service delivery system as well as the transaction cost. The other issue is the design of service delivery system itself. Since customer is going to be part of the system, he or she may have more opportunities to discover what I may call the moments of truth. This must be kept in mind while designing the service delivery system, because as soon as the customer walks in, whether the service provider likes it or not, everything that happens in the service delivery system enables the customer to discover the moments of truth. So, which means three areas of service delivery design merit closer attention. The choice of service networks. How do you place the service network? Is it conveniently placed? The logistics planning and manning the supply chain. What kind of people? How are we training such people? How are they going to interact with the customers? All these are going to be very critical in such supply chains. So, another question that we need to worry about in a situation where we are talking about simultaneity of production and consumption is how will we improve responsiveness. Customers are not going to wait there for long for something that is happening in the system. The system has to respond very fast. So, how are we going to do? And that raises a few important questions. Are the people empowered to take decisions immediately? How much capacity should we have? All these will affect responsiveness. Again, please recall our discussions in the previous module on capacity, the last video where we talked about queuing theory and so on, where we showed that there is this effectiveness versus efficiency trade-offs, and for a service supply chain we need to really understand why we have to worry about effectiveness more carefully. Then we will go to the third issue, which is people oriented and people intensive nature of business, which is what most of the services are. So, clearly the chain will be resource or manpower intensive, and moment you say the chain is manpower intensive, it has implications for scalability. I mean, if it is an automated system, scaling it up is much easier. If it is manpower intensive, it has its own challenges. It has implications for quality and supply chain performance, because it is these people who are going to interact with the customers in real time. How do you train them? What kind of an attitude they bring to the table? Because they are at the end of the day dealing with the customers on a one-on-one basis. So, we need to think about all of them have implications on quality. One more critical supply chain management design element when we talk about people issues is the level of decentralization. Service firms generally require more decentralization. So, if a customer goes to a branch of let us say a large financial services firm, and this customer has a problem, and then he interacts with the sales relations manager on the other side, the person on the other side may not be able to tell the customer for everything that I need to check with my higher ups, can you come next week, can I do some paperwork, and can I clarify to you 2 days later. It is difficult. So, decentralization is very important, but the question is, if you decentralize, how do you set up associated controls, because you are giving more and more decision making to the lower levels. So, you need checks and balances there. Customer is mostly exposed to the lowest level in the hierarchy. Please tell me, when you go to a 5-star hotel, you may be the CEO of a company, you do not meet the CEO of the hotel, you meet the bellboy, you meet the room boy, you always meet the employees at the lower level, perhaps the lowest level in the hierarchy. So, this has service quality implications. We need to worry about these when we talk of people intensive business.